Hey there, everyone. Well, have you ever wondered if you're being too critical of yourself? Is that holding you back from reaching your potential? Possibly. So today I want you to look at this silencing the inner critic, and I'm going to give you practical tips and steps to reclaim your confidence, or maybe tap into the confidence that you may have never even thought you even had. So I want you to look at how you are showing up. And I want you to look at today the request or the quest that you may have of improving yourself, or looking at how you are looking at the inner critic. So the inner critic is a persistent voice. Let me just identify what the inner critic is. It's a persistent voice that may undermine you, that says that you're not confident, that attacks your confidence, it attacks your self-worth. And silencing that inner critic is going to be essential for any personal growth that you want. Anything that you desire to unlock or get unstuck or whatever it is, there are practical steps that you can go ahead and deal with this. But what I've noticed as a psychotherapist, and specifically a marriage and family therapist, what I identify very, very early on for a lot of my clients is early on in your life, you may have had some experiences that really attacked your self-esteem, your confidence, and it really comes in a space where us growing up in a home where it starts with our parents, and I'm not saying that you to blame your parents or stay in that story. But what I do want to see is your perception of what is linking your inner critic and what may be stopping you from having the growth, self-sabotaging yourself constantly over and over again, or having these opportunities that's in front of your face, but then you self-sabotaging and then you don't even know how to even get to the next step. So surprisingly, there are some things that I have noticed throughout my years of having in sessions with people, and it may sound profound, but it really isn't. It really is deep in psychological studies and psychological journeys and self-discovery, and people saying, I want to get to my authentic self and looking at my authentic self, but then I'm fighting with my old self and I'm observing my new self and what I want to be, self, 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 self. So the common phenomenon that we look at is the periods of how we look at ourselves. And a lot of our therapeutic work is a critical part is how we are nurtured and what we actually have seen that leads us to our beliefs, our values, and things of that nature. It has a critical alignment of how we move through the earth, and it's stepping into where or how we believe, and the layers of our behaviors, our beliefs, our patterns is connected to what we have drastically been through, our experiences. So it is going to be a valuable thing through this particular video for us we're going to look at some things that may be a cause, or it may be very confronting to you. And then there's parts of you that really have to hone in to where I am physically and what important outputs and inputs that I'm doing to get to myself and that inner critic that keeps popping up, and the processes that I keep getting off off centered, or maybe not centered at all. So I'm going to make sure you go get your paper, your pen, and things. You can always rewind it. But I want you to we're going to first look at how we're going to understand the inner critic. So let me go ahead and get I have my little paper that I usually, my little teaching pad here. So I just double this as my little journey here that we're going to go. So this will give you time to go ahead and get your pen and pad ready. And I'm just going to have a little teachable moment here, and I want you to look at where you may stand. All right. So the first thing you'll want to look at is understanding an inner critic, right? Because understanding the inner critic is really good, is the first part. So what is the inner critic? Understanding the inner critic. And the inner critic is different for everyone, okay? Just let me just say that. So the inner critic, who or what the inner critic is. So understanding it is understanding you. Understanding you. All right, so understanding the inner critic. Understanding the inner critic says, I'm going to hear this voice in my head. Now, I'm not saying that you hear voices or anything like that, but you definitely talk to yourself. We have conversations with ourselves all the time, right? So it's important to identify what the inner critic sounds like. It's very important for us to see what we're manifesting in our heads. And it could be a scenario that you keep talking yourself out of things. So feeling confident about your work or feeling confident about what leaves you to seeing that you're matching yourself up with your colleague and you feel like a failure, or maybe your partner is joking around with you and but he or she says a particular phrase and that gives you off, an inner critic starts to really starts thinking about, oh well, maybe I am stupid, or maybe I am dumb, or feeling about yourself that you're just is triggering from something that your parent may have said. And so that self-hate, that self-triggering or rejection or anything like that, that stuff comes up, right? So we're going to be looking at a little bit about what does that really mean when it looks and what it sounds like. So understanding where it may come from, I want you to take a couple of minutes and I want you to think about it. Just take a couple of minutes. And I want you to actually get really honed in with what that means. How does my inner critic stop me from taking action? Understanding it, how does it stop me? How does it stop me? That's important. How does that inner voice stop you? Think about it. It could be at your work, it could be anywhere. How does the inner critic sound? And it may sound like your voice because it is your voice. How does it sound? How does it sound? And it may sound like an old teacher, or it may sound, but it's still your voice. But it may sound, the sounds may sound like something from childhood or something from really early on. How does it keep you from not taking action? How does it stop me as I'm talking? And as we're looking at this, you may feel as though you're not really connected. But I want you to take one step at a time. Because what's going to happen, and this is not therapy, this is not that, just I want you to look at it. Because when you see yourself, you may have created some sort of self-hate for yourself. Or when things happen or trigger you, it may shift your mood for the rest of the day. So we have to really look at where these critics come from. And as I look around my life, and as I looked around my life, I had to look at this, and I like to share my scars. Growing up, I grew up in a household with a stepfather. I never knew my biological father. My stepfather, famous word was, "Hey, stupid." Stupid, 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 stupid. And then my mother, chimed in and she didn't know that she was, saying this word stupid. And to the point where I thought I was stupid. And to the point where now I had struggles in school and I've struggled with reading and things of that nature. And I just was like, oh my God. So what I became forceful bully. I'm going to bulldoze my way. I'm going to do what I need to do. And a lot of it was replaying in my head, even as I got older. So much so, when I had children, they couldn't even say the word stupid in their house. And I was traumatizing them more for not saying the word stupid. I mean, when they was called their siblings stupid, I would come like out of the room like a superhero. Don't you call your brother stupid? Don't you? That's a horrible word. And they're frightened because now their mother is screaming and yelling about don't say stupid. And the point is that when you're looking at this, I was the one, there's the trauma around stupid. And I was carrying around these negative thoughts about this word. And it's a word, which had damaged my self-esteem, which led to deep insecurities. And as I thought about when I moved into this area of psychology and psyche and psychodynamics and all these things, and either with the family dynamics, I understood that I had to look at self. That's why narratives are so important. And we're going to get into that some other videos. But it's the narratives of what you are saying about yourself. It speaks very loudly. Where in my inner critic is speaking very loudly, understanding where it's coming from, and how can I stop the sabotaging behavior in my life? Because a lot of this is about how I am sabotaging myself. A lot of questions are being answered and not being answered very authentically. And it is maybe the inner critic, maybe the 12-year-old speaking, maybe the 9-year-old speaking, maybe the 15-year-old speaking. I don't know. But it's when you're not listening to give yourself the value to learn how your identity can challenge your inner critic when it shows up. And that's where I want you to look at. When you answer these questions, and hopefully you answered the questions as you write it down, when you start to say, what words am I going to shift and use? Because some of your inner voice may be running you and it's operating in that way unconsciously. You're on an automatic, I call the ARR, automatic response, right? When you're on an automatic reactive response, the ARR, when you're on that, you're automatically reactivating and you're automatically responding. You're not even listening, you're not even hearing. So it's important for you to begin to challenge what voices are operating. Does a very good job of convincing you that you're not good enough, that you're an idiot, that you're stupid like mine did? Or when somebody tells a joke that you haven't taken it very personally, that you're a terrible son or daughter, or whatever's happening, and then whatever's opening up for you, can you automatically silence it? Now, silencing the inner critic, I told you I was going to give you 5 steps. 5 steps. And when the inner critic shows up, now it's going to show up. And I want you to do this in 5 steps. The 5 steps I want you to do is you're going to be asking yourself a question. Ask the inner critic. When it shows up, it says, you know you can't do that. You know that you're not good enough. Girl, please. Boy, bye. No. I want you to look at this. And I want you to see what you have been saying to yourself. And I want you to ask the inner critic this question. Okay, and this is what I also want to say. It's not about you saying that you're hearing voices. What I am saying is that you talk this inner talk all the time. And this is not a diagnosis of anything. This is a healthy mind that you can talk yourself and say, I can do this, I can do that. That's the type of mind I'm talking about, okay? So the question I want you to do is ask this first step. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? But ask yourself that question. What do you want from me? What are you afraid might happen if you don't listen to me? That's the second question. Second question. What are you afraid of if you don't listen to me? And maybe you got in trouble. What may happen? What would you make? And if you don't listen to it, what makes you feel safe? Does the voice make you feel safe? Does this voice make you feel safe? Now, as you ask yourself these questions, I want you to look at how you're showing up. Now, as you begin to, it's a pivotal moment, right? How we can hold the pivotal moment in our minds of taking control of the inner voice, because all the inner critic is you. How we can recognize that this is all false. How we can begin to recognize when it shows up. And the first thing you got to do is rename it. After you've done all this, I want you to rename it. And what does that look like? Renaming it. So renaming it says, I'm going to now rename you. That means we say, you could say reframe to, in therapy we say a frame, but I'm just going to say rename. So you're going to first rename it. So you may notice that as you're going forth in the whole day and as you committed to doing this, there's going to be voices that's going to chime in. So I say do this in the mirror or whatever, but you can also do it because sometimes when you're stuck and things are happening to you, you can maybe be stuck in traffic and the inner critic comes up, right? You should have left early. You should have did this. Whatever's happening, you should have did, or whatever it is. And it's shaping your mind. You sound stupid. Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Oh my goodness, what's happening? You sound annoying. Nobody's gonna believe you. All of this. Rename it. That's what it looks over when the inner critic is happening. So what do I mean by renaming it? If you're saying that you're so stupid, you're saying, you know, Shara, you're smart. If you find that you're saying you're ugly, you know, you are perfectly made. I love your nose. I love your mouth. You start to begin to love on yourself. After you understanding what that looks like for you, what needs to show up for you, to rename it. So renaming it means that I'm not going to have an opportunity for that inner critic to say that I am not good enough. It is time for us to look at where we have been stuck. And your words, they matter. What you are saying about yourself matters. It matters to a point where you don't really recognize that you have been stuck in a space that has happened to you probably practically all your life. And you may be recognizing that today that I need to rename it and claim it. So renaming it is me saying I'm taking control over the names that I was called. I'm taking control over how I am perceived. You know, perception starts with you first. So as I'm renaming it, I am now saying to myself of understanding this, that as I'm silencing that inner critic, but I'm also renaming it, I am now taking control over it. And renaming it is me saying that that's the first step, that I'm going to stay very much in recognizing that any self-doubt, I can rename it and claim it. I no longer have to sit here and listen to anything negative about me, even with my own mind. Now, there's some identifying triggers. So the first one is you're going to rename it. The second one is you have some identifying triggers. Now, what are triggers? Triggers are anything that take you out of the space. Anything that take you out to space. So you're going to rename it, and then you're going to identify your triggers, right? So when you becoming aware of the inner critic, you're going to be very curious to see what is the self-critical thoughts that are happening in your mind. And it's rooted in your feeling that you've probably been ignoring. So in order for you to take control of it, you need to look at it. Maybe specific words, maybe it's a tone. You need to look at specifically for you that you've probably been overlooking. So overlooking means that I am going to look and pinpoint what it may be. So here are some common ones or common situations that may show up for you that may be linking to the past that still may be showing up in your present day. Thoughts of emotions of rejection, abandonment, unfair treatment. Like some people, it's about the being just, feeling misunderstood, hopelessness or helplessness, not being regarded, feeling judged or a loss of freedom or ignored. Those are some common ones, right? And feeling like this when you've grown up, like I felt always like I was misunderstood in growing up or rejected. And a lot of times when you feel this way, you were either treated as being either annoying or needy or sensitive or irritable, whichever it is. But I want you to look at situations where you reacted. Okay, so remember I gave you that scenario about my children would say the word stupid and I just went off and reacted, and I would go and say, don't you call your brother that, and just traumatizing the children even more. So I want you to look at your inner voice and your inner critic sound to anticipate literally when you will be able to turn this off and turn it on, to begin to understand that it needs to be healed, and understand that this is not your present day situation, but this is something that's from your past, possibly happening in the present, right? And then leading into it is essentially becoming an assertive. And you probably heard me talk about this before, because here on the Speak Your Power Now community, we talk a lot about communication. So becoming assertive communicator. Now, a assertive communicator looks like someone that has control. This is the third one, assertive communicator. Now, an assertive communicator is someone that's not a dictator, someone that's not an agitator, but someone that can really look and see how you can assertively hush up that inner critic. Because you and you alone can really do it. This is an inside job. When you keep hearing, who do you think you are? You can't do this. It warns you not to take action. That's all that it's telling you, don't take action. And that was one of the questions. Does it stop you from taking action? You know, when somebody says, I just completed my doctoral position, and, from me growing up, me thinking that I'm stupid, I had to resist a lot of rejection in my own head, where a lot of people had a lot of support saying, you got this, you can do this. But it really was an inside job. See, being assertive is that you first got to be assertive with yourself. And the communication style is taking care of yourself so you can begin to move powerfully in your present and your future. And the fundamentals of good mental health and healthy relationships is not always going to become that. It's not always being easy to have good boundaries, as we talked about before, and be assertive. But it's very possible that you can do this. But the position that you have, you can be able to be passive or passive aggressive or be assertive. And be that with your own self first. You need to gain the understanding of self. Because once you understand the understanding the self, you can acknowledge what you can control is your own behaviors and what other behaviors that you are not in control of, which is other people's behaviors. You can control your emotions. You can stay respectful at all times. You can begin to nurture yourself. You have the role. You are an effective communicator. You have the power from within. You have that power. And the fourth one is you have the power to interrupt that inner dialogue. Yep, I said it. You have the power to interrupt the inner dialogue. The inner voice. You have the power. You have the power. So take some time take a couple of breaths. And then I want you to give yourself a chance to shift your thoughts, what you're working with, and begin to look at where things may be heating up in a conversation, where you may have shut down in a conversation. And I need you to pause and step away if you can. And I want you, if it does continue to escalate, you need to really move and get yourself support. I know if you go on outside on your deck or outside, get some fresh air if possible. You need to take a time. Some people have their dogs or a pet. Some people may run to the market. Some people may go read. I know one lady, she knits. Go watch a funny movie, whatever it is, but you need to seek some type of distraction to interrupt this thought. Now, as you see that it's not avoiding, but it's getting you completely aware that this inner voice is attempting to get you. It may be a painful memory that may be trying to creep up. And it's important for you to have tools in place and be compassionate with yourself. Because standing up to your inner critic voice requires you to meet yourself with compassion. And remember that all of these things that are happening, you got to be honest with yourself. It's going to be challenging. So the simple actions that you can take is in the moment, take a moment, get grounded so you can build the identity of your present self and not that past self. Because your inner voice can begin to conquer it. But you are looking at how you are not staying in the present. This is why you got to practice renaming it. This is why you got to look at your life and see, where is my inner voice in my head is attempting to snatch my present and my future self. But simply putting your thoughts in order and intentionally living, this is where you can begin to look at yourself. As you look at yourself, you can begin to see that this opportunity that you have to ask yourself questions. A lot of us don't ask ourselves questions. A lot about what therapeutic services is, and I see a lot of my clients ask a lot of questions. Because sometimes we're not even asked a lot of questions. And then a lot of times when we attempted to shift these patterns, this is all we're doing, is shifting patterns of self-sabotage and procrastination and all this other stuff, is being self-aware and identifying the root cause of our behaviors, identifying where these things even came from. So shifting your awareness and your mindset will begin to create these powerful new habits. And then what will arise is a new opinion about self. Now, it's going to take some time because And when it's actions surrounding these achievements and your opinions about yourself and these past experiences and societal norms and just internal beliefs about yourself, who said that? Who said that you have to be in a box? And this is where you can individually understand who you are. And you can begin to look at yourself and the ability, because guess what? As human beings, you are more resilient than you think. So today you had some key takeaways, I hope. And I want you to begin to identify your limiting beliefs that you may have about yourself. Fear, failure, or whatever it is, I want you to look at it. Get some affirmations. This is the last one I'm going to put down. You're going to get some affirmations about yourself and you're going to shift it. I'm not saying that it's going to automatically stop and it's going to happen. No, because you need to shift it. Get some affirmations. And as you positively move in these statements about yourself, build on these beliefs about yourself, you're going to see that you're going to have a mind shift and build resiliencies against or with this inner critic. And you're going to bounce back more quicker as you continue to do this. You have to be intentional and persistent. Once you identify it, you can reprogram your mind. You can take the actions that you need to begin to conquer the inner, you can conquer the inner critic. It's just you and your own self-perceptions and what somebody told you that you are or you're not. So embracing this journey means that the personal growth that I am moving into is that I'm going to open up the new door today. I'm going to open up the new door today to fulfill my life and what I desire for my life. Because this opportunity that you're having, this one life that we all get, why are you wasting it? It doesn't matter what your mother did. It didn't matter what your father did. It didn't matter about that stuff. And I'm not saying, and I'm not trivializing or minimizing your experience. But what I am saying is that there's a way that you can unlock your potential. And the first one, the one thing that I am dealing with today is you can get control over your inner critic. Well, I thank you so much for joining. Go ahead and share and share and subscribe if you haven't already, because this is powerful. And we want the world to know that your life is meaningful. You're worthy. You mean something. And remember, sometimes your life is defined by one single moment. Let that moment be today. Peace and God bless. I'll see you next time.